From time to time, you might come across a property which is zoned rural and you might consider investing in that property. A rural property is any property zoned rural by the local government. Some property in residential areas may be zoned as rural residential if the block is large but subdivision of that block isn't allowed. This zoning means very little to your investment. If the property is to be tenanted, then the same rules apply as they do with standard residential investing, and the same tax benefits apply as well. But if the property is income producing, such as a farm, and it's to be tenanted with the income going to the landlord, then tax deductibility will still apply, but the structure under which this is claimed is likely to be a business structure. Now, this means that a range of other tax implications will also apply, like the responsibility for paying GST, income tax and any other common business taxes. If, on the other hand, the income goes to the tenant, then only the rents are assessed as being a return on the investment, and the rules of rental property-related income do apply. Lastly, if the property is income producing and it is to be occupied by the owner, then business tax rules will apply. Lending criteria for rural property will vary from bank to bank and are dependent on the size, for example, the number of hectares. The actual zoning also counts. For example, rural, rural protection, rural residential, etc., and a number of other factors will determine how it's looked at by the bank. Now, banks will usually lend 70% of valuation without lender's mortgage insurance, with some banks treating large properties as commercial transactions. It is to be noted, though, that when you sell a rural property that you live in, you might not get a full principal place of residence exemption. Now, this is because only the 5 acres around the dwelling is exempt. The remaining acres, if any, will attract capital gains tax, even if you lived there. The benefits of owning rural property are, if you've purchased property and a business, you might have an upside in terms of the ability to make business profits. Later on, if the zoning changes, there might be an opportunity to subdivide into smaller lots. However, the drawbacks of owning rural property include, rural property can be hard to value. Often the returns, if rented, are not nearly as good as those from residential property. Typically, there are insufficient growth drivers to result in good capital gains, as many rural properties exist in areas which lack the well-known growth drivers and have little in the way of amenity or population growth. While it can be lovely to live in a country-like setting, rural property rarely makes for a great investment unless development in the area is imminent and you happen to be able to secure a soon-to-be divided property. Next time, I'm talking commercial property, so be sure to join me then.